Hi, welcome to Write More Light. My name is Sarah. I'm with the Midwest Writing Center, and this is our web series. In case you are new to the web series, here's what it's going to look like. I'm going to give this little intro, then I'm going to introduce the topic/guest of the day. Then we're going to do an interview because today's an interview day. Other days it would be perhaps a short lesson on something literary. Following that, I'll give you updates on the Midwest Writing Center and then a short writing prompt. So thanks for hanging out with me. Today we have Ava Miller returning to follow up on the last video they did with us, which is about world building. Ava, as it turns out, is very resourceful and documents everything really well. I guess that what I'm trying to say is organized. Um, and let me look through their holy grail of world building. So I came up with some questions and we're gonna talk it through. We're gonna see how we can make something like this work for all of us. So thanks for hanging out again, Ava.
No problem. I'm very excited to geek out about my Holy Grail again.
I'm really sort of floored by it. I like things that I never would have thought of doing, you have done. Um, and I'm like, oh, this is why I failed at this particular thing. Now I know. I could fix that. Um, so let's first define the Holy Grail, which I did not write down as a question to ask, which just seems really silly.
Yeah, so the Holy Grail is this that I'm holding up now. Um, it is a binder full of world building stuff. Um, so I'm trying to think of like how best to sum this up. It's honestly like best described as its parts and not the sum of its parts. Um, but it is basically like I called it the Holy Grail because um it's like what will save my life when it comes to world building. It's a thing where you can keep track of every single little like plot and character intricacy that exists, which is a really basic kind of explanation, but I feel like we'll get into that. So
I need 101 here. It's also like if we're calling it a Holy Grail and somebody's like, we I need what? Um, you know, we need to establish our terms.
yeah.
Um, I want to add something. I wrote myself a little intro for you for this topic and then didn't read it. Um, I'm just gonna read it now.
Yeah.
Ava is here to discuss how they keep track of everything in their universe, their writing universe, their fictional universe, and give us some guidance on how to keep a structure when building a universe. So, the structure
Yeah.
part and the guidance part that seemed important, and I just left it out. Um, so I've seen it, I've touched it, and so I've looked through it a little bit. Um, I was like not going to say that. Like it's not important whether or not I have. But operating for those who cannot be near it and use you for support, in person anyway. What categories are you currently using?
So I'll just give like a little overview of the categories in general. So I have a category for species. Then there's one for character bios. Um, there is one for quotes. I keep on holding this up wrong. Um, then there's one for places and like general locations. Um, there's one for sketch. And it's funny because it's spelled wrong, so it says sketh. Um, but it's I like it still. Then there's plots, um, brainstorming, and then finally history. Um, so what I've been, I guess the one that I've worked on the most is character bios. Um, and pretty much anytime I come up with a new character, I go straight to character bios and I write out one for them. Um, character bios itself is separated into three different categories. So there's the universe that is my fictional band. Um, there's a universe that is before the events of the fictional band. It's like 500 years prior.
Same universe,
And then
but
this one, yeah. And then this one is the synthetic universe. So that's the one that I described last time that has like the body horror one. Um, Sketch is one that I also use a lot. I kind of just like it's organized in like this. So it's not really like I go in and like draw things on a page and then like collect my drawings there. It's more like I'm bored at work or something and I start drawing on a piece of paper and then I cut it out and paste it into the sketch section. Um, but what I've been using the most and what I think is kind of like the most abstract one at the moment is history. Um, when I originally got it, I thought that history would mean like a timeline or something. So like I'd have to write out like put like a big line on a piece of paper and then like write out the events that would be happening over the course of this universe. But that's not what I actually ended up doing. I am currently working on the religion, and I think I mentioned that in my last interview. So this is like a little sheet about the like how religion works in this universe. And then I haven't done this yet, but these pages are gonna like show all the gods that are present in this universe, and have a description of them. But then after that, I have a list of the bands that exist within the band universe. Um, so every single sheet has just like a character bio and like what the band does. It usually has a logo on it. Um, and so it's like a little um it keeps track of that too. So not just like there's not just like a character template, there's a band template too.
Uh, um, that's a lot of things. I was wondering if you were gonna mention more than one universe. And you did. I keep looking at my paper and my questions are on my computer. Um, so I think I'm gonna go out of order here because you've named the topics. Um, you have it's places? Yes, okay. I worded it correctly in my question, but I couldn't find my question. You have places, and I know that like maps tend to be really common in speculative fiction and very useful because like I can't be like, this doesn't take place in my hometown where I know that this is across the street from
Yeah.
this. Um, can you elaborate on what goes on in your places section?
Yeah, I'll just so it's very hard to flip through this thing because it is super thick. So I'm just gonna remove these pages from the binder. That's another very convenient thing about having like if you're planning to set up your own holy grail and you want to like if you're deciding about like the medium you want to use, I would highly recommend a binder, because then you can just grab loose leaf paper and you can put it in however you want. You can use sheet protectors, and things like that. So it's very, and then there's no limit to how much you can put in it. So highly recommend binders. Um, so my places is pretty much about the planets that exist in my band universe. So the one I just pulled out right now is called Esleatune. This front page is just kind of like a description of like the planet and things that go on. So it's like, yeah, population, native species, um, the size, land features. Um, this one is pretty much like Earth. There's not that much different from Earth. So on this one, I just kind of have like land features are plains and deserts. But then on another planet, there's like lush forests and things like that. So that's just the overview. I drew a little picture of the planet, um, so you can see what it looks like. Um, and then I drew. I'm gonna have to redo this because I forgot that continents exist. Um, but I drew just kind of like a little map of um the land features, I guess. So pretty much every single thing that takes place in my current story is taking place here in Strassow. But uh I did some uh I guess these are like features of the countries. Um so I did a picture of the country itself with the context of like what the states are in this country. There's a location on the map. This is a distribution of like the species that exist in this particular area. Um, and yeah, again, more details that are just like here's the major states, landmarks, and things like that. Um, I also have like the type of government that it runs under, which I think is a pretty interesting feature. Um, I'd say this is like the very like easiest part to add if you're just kind of getting started. I put if this is like a developed country, the cost of living and then the danger level. So this is a very it's a not a dangerous place to live, but there's a high cost of living. And that's kind of the general essence you get from just looking at this feature. So I did that for most of the places on this planet. Um, and I think that's the best developed one I have so far. The rest are just kind of like I have like the cover page for it, but not any of like the land features. Um, that was something that I forgot to mention, or I think I mentioned it last time, but anyway, um, something that I think is really valuable about having a Holy Grail is that you don't have to sit down and fill it out completely right away on the first go. Um, and so I definitely have like a ton of empty space here where there's room for me to fill this in, but I haven't done it yet. Um, and that's just kind of to show there's not really a lot of pressure on getting stuff done right away. It's just like it's literally just like a convenient thing to have while you're looking for it.
So, do you, so I just, you know this, probably the folks who watch this know this. I don't have much of an imagination. So I imagine that being really useful to you as a writer as you're moving along to like maintain continuity or to, so you don't have to like, you've already, you've already created the thing. You don't have to create it again when you're finally putting it into the scene. Are there other ways that it's helpful to you, or is it just like yeah, tell me how having that established, especially with politics, religion, and geography, the like
Yeah,
the social socioeconomic environment already just
I
played
think
set out.
I think a lot of what's helped is that like with this layout kind of set out, I can determine which character came from which location. Um, so if this character, I don't know, has this certain type of tradition that they normally do, I would say, oh, they come from like this part of the world. Um, or if like I've also kind of started with a character and written their backstory and been like, okay, this is like where they the environment of where they live. So now I have to come up with a place that explains like why what environment they live in. I guess to kind of talk less obliquely, um, I have a character who grew up as a child soldier. And so yeah, so there's a specific country that she comes from, um, that borders another country that is kind of like less strict about like that kind of thing. And so I've established that like because this country, the country she comes from, has child soldiers and like utilizes that kind of like unethical warfare, then there are these other countries are coming in to try to stop them, and these are the countries that like declare war with that country, and these are the countries that kind of have like a more tenuous relationship but aren't quite at war with them yet.
That's yeah, that's awesome. Um, so I had this question, but I'm gonna save it for later. Um, what
Oh, I have an example of one that just kind of like a title page that I filled out, but I drew this one. It is not very much like Earth. Um, so like the oceans are lighter colored. There's more like flora and fauna on this planet that's like strangely colored. And so this is like an example of how you could make a planet that's like different from Earth. Um, yeah.
That's awesome. Um, you so you have a lot of illustrations. Does that, or maybe how does that inform your process or your understanding of the universe or character or plot, whatever it is that you're illustrating?
Yeah. I think just for me it's kind of a shortcut. I know a lot of people like there are some people who draw along with their writing and there are some people who like have no idea how to draw. Um so Sarah's pointing at herself. So I think there's it's just as easy if you're a writer to just like instead of drawing an illustration you could describe the planet in that location, um, and kind of like, I don't know, paint with your words. Um, and yeah, just because I do like drawing and I have like markers and stuff around me, it's an excuse not to write, I guess. It's just an excuse it's an excuse to like use another one of my talents to like express myself, but I really think that like um a hearty description is just as good as a drawing. Um
Hardy.
it's yeah, it's just another medium for me.
That's that is not what I expected. Cool. Um, I write questions in an order and then I just abandon it. Um, so we're just gonna abandon it. I'm not gonna think too hard about it. So you were advising using a binder, which I'm here for, in case that was unclear. But what do you think are some advantages to using that format as opposed to like I don't know, a spreadsheet or whatever other people may do, something digital?
Yeah. I tried using a spreadsheet one time, and it kind of got away from me. I went a little crazy on it. I was doing something that was along the lines of like I was like describing like year by year, here's what important events happen in this character's life. Um and it ended up getting like really really huge, and kind of unmanageable in that way. I think if people are able to figure out how to do it in a way that works for them, that's good for them. It just like um I guess when a page is very limiting for me, like a single like tangible page, so like I have to be succinct and fill up that page but not like go overboard with it. um a spreadsheet really doesn't have those kind of like limits, so you can just keep going whenever and like not really know when to stop. And I think a good part of the Holy Grail is to like you do want to like, explain everything that you have going on, um but also being succinct about it is also like a good attribute for me, because then you don't have to like, I don't know, parse through a bunch of writing that you did and have to locate like the important stuff. It's like, here's exactly what you're looking for, where you need to find it. Like a character age. Um, if I have like age 18 marked down, then that's really easy for me to find.
That's something that I have messed up a lot. I'm like, oh, I never named that character. I did. That's a real thing that happened. I was gonna say I forgot a character name, but I definitely just didn't name a character for 80 pages. Um, but also I've messed up pages too. Okay, so did you like how did you come up with this format then? Like, did you try the digital version first? Were there lots of like failed notebooks? Like, how did it come to be? I know
Yeah.
a little of the backstory, so I didn't mean to like negate the other players, but
I think before I had a Holy Grail, a lot of what I did was just kind of like it was organized because I'm a uh, plotter. I'm not a pantser, so of course it was organized, but it wasn't like centrally located. So I'd have like just random Google Docs open of like, here's a bunch of things about these characters. Here's like their entire plot. But I didn't really have an explanation for like their planets or anything. I was just like, this character's from this planet. Um, and then not really sort of any explanation or backstory into why that planet was like essential to the storytelling. Um, and then I did do the spreadsheet thing, and it got carried away. Um, but then yeah, the Holy Grail came from my former roommate Mariko. Shout out to Mariko. I think it was just like a birthday gift. And I'm not actually sure how she came up with that either. She just kind of handed it to me and was like, "Here you go. I hope you could use this." And I was like, "Oh my God, this is literally like the best thing I've ever seen." Um, so I might have to ask Mariko where she got that idea, but it was just like a very kind of something that had never occurred to me. So I don't know. I hope like this Write More Light will be like, I'll be the your Mariko, and introduce you to this topic you didn't even know existed. Um,
did she set up the sections at all, or did she just give you some
yeah,
dividers?
yeah. She set up the sections.
Have you added any, taken any away?
Nope. There's some that I don't like use as often. Quotes I don't really use as much because I write quotes on my phone. Um, but pretty much every single other one I use a lot. Oh, I don't use plots as much because like I said, I already have those Google Docs, um, and they're already written out. Um, I usually use them for like writing like poems or something. Like if I'm out and about and all I have is a piece of paper, then I'll just write a poem on it and stick it in the plot section. But I also don't really like write that many plots in it because I like, I do like to give it to people to show. Um, so I don't want to have like, here's a spoilerific thing that I'm handing to you.
Hmm.
Um, and so I do that like, I guess that's kind of like another interesting thing that's just kind of unique to me is that like I invented the Holy Grail to be like accessible to a bunch of people. Um, so I do have like some spoiler things that I'll like have marked as a spoiler or be like, I can't tell you that that's a spoiler. A lot of it has to do with like relationship status or like things like that. Um, like if a character like one of the parts that I have on the character sheet is um like romantic situation or like partner and I'll just be like haha spoilers. Um so yeah. I guess kind of like because I know it in my brain it's not as essential for me to mark down things like that, but like you definitely can make a spoiler version of the Holy Grail.
Yeah, I mean, you, yours is accessible. You're showing it off, you're sharing it with me, and also I'm invested in your storytelling. That makes
Yeah.
sense. But if I were going to do it, I would probably not care about spoilers. For example, my character, who didn't have a name for 80 pages, um, is a romantic interest, and like I don't care if you know that. Also, if it's not clear, like on their first meeting, then well, it doesn't matter. Not getting into that. Um, uh, yeah, okay. So that's interesting. I assumed that you would have added sections or something, but Mariko just knows you that well.
Yeah.
Um, were you ever have you ever been surprised by how much you use a section?
Yeah, I think my if you're looking at it from just like a side view, um, there we go. This is all character bios. It's a very like big and chunky section. Um, and I didn't realize how many character bios I had. I think that's like me as a world builder, my jumping off point is characters. Um, so like if I think of a character that sounds interesting to me, I'll invent them and then be like, where can they fit in my universe? Um, so a lot of what I have to do is keep track of characters. Um, and so that's most of what I use it for. The sketch part also gets used a lot just because I do draw a lot at work. Um, and then I think, yeah, like I said earlier about history, like I didn't expect to be using it in um kind of a broken up way. Like I expected to have a timeline in there and be like constantly updating that timeline. But instead I'm just kind of using it for little sections and facets that I didn't expect to write about. Um, so I think it's interesting how you can have like multiple ways to interpret the individual tabs too.
So when you do the bios, is that oh, okay. I was like, I can't believe I didn't write a question. It's just because I'm not reading my questions in order. Um, what motivates you, I guess, to write those bios? And yeah, and why are they part of the Holy Grail? That's it's very interesting to me. You know, I've taken a lot of classes where the instructor will ask people who write, long form fiction, what's something you know about this character that's not in the text? And so that's about like the writer knowing their characters well. But it would not occur to me to start I mean, my characters or my stories are character driven for sure. Um, but I don't even know if I could write a bio for any of my characters. So I'm very curious about this one and now embarrassed.
I think what drives me is like empty boxes. So I'll just show you like a template that I have for my character. So this is like my main character. He's my main man. Um, and it's a very extensive character sheet. I have so like age, date of birth, gender, blah blah blah. And yeah, it's very I like okay, so when I write characters, I usually go to the template of the character sheet and I just kind of like fill out a template right away. I put their name at the very top. I put a little drawing for the picture, or I put a little box for the picture that I will eventually draw, and then just kind of like write out every single like thing that I know will go in the template onto the template, and then I usually leave it there for a bit. And then I'll kind of like stew over it and think like, okay, what is this character's age? What is their ethnicity? What like things like that. Um, and so it'll end up having a lot of empty boxes, and then I'll see it, and once I think of it, I'm like, oh, cool. I'll just like write it down. And then there's also like the variation where you do have it, and you end up like sitting down and just filling it out as you feel like it. Um, and I feel like I hear that all the time too. Like, what's a thing you know about your characters that is not present in the text? And I'm always like, nothing. Like, I don't know. I feel like I write a lot about like what's in like the text pretty much reflects the entire character. The second half of the page is most of what I would consider like stuff that is maybe not present in the text. This is again like hometown education, social class. Um that's when I like the social class one. I can decide like this character just happens to be in the 1%, so like that's interesting to write. Others are like middle class, lower class. Um a lot of my universe has to do with like class divide. Um uh and then down here, I guess also is like there's fear, strengths, weaknesses. I guess that wouldn't make it into the text, but again, it's present here on this sheet for you to know and look back to. Like if I don't know, there's a section that comes up in your writing where you're like, oh, I need to like think of something that like something that plays to my character's strength. Like you have a strength written down that you can like kind of use to inform that. I'm trying to look for a page that's maybe not as filled out so I can show the empty boxes.
So you look for the same things in each character when you're writing their bio.
Yeah. It doesn't all come at the same time, but it definitely like is helpful once I think of it. Here's one that's not as filled out. I don't even have a drawing for it. But then the back is entirely empty. Um, and I guess I'll have to fill it out at some point, but I guess like once I see this, once I flip open the Holy Grail and I see this, I'm like, oh, that can't be empty. I've got to think of something. Um, and that's a lot of my motivation, but yeah, I don't know where I was going with that.
No, 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 no. That was particularly wild to me as I could read some of it on the back there, and I'm like, I learn about as a pantser, I learn about my characters as I write them, and like I'm not totally sure I'm in control of the narrative anyway. So like strengths and weaknesses, I'm sitting here and I'm like, well, I can tell you strengths and weaknesses of my protagonist for sure. Um, but I'm not sure the character can identify those things. Just
Yeah.
also interesting. What else is on there? I want to think about it in the context of my story now.
Yeah. Here, I'll
I'm trying
just
to
show
think.
you what I've got
Yeah.
filled out already. I might have to like post a picture of the template.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay. Yeah. You were, I mean, I know you already read them to us, but okay.
yeah,
Thank you.
and also the back. I like fashion. That's one of my favorite ones.
God, these are so good. These are so good for character development. Like I am learning so much about how much I have failed my characters right now. And I don't mean that in like a like if you're similar to me, it's not a failing. I said the word failing, but it's not a failing. It's an opportunity. God, am I a
Yeah.
motivational speaker? But it is, you can see like I have the opportunity to flesh this character out and make them a little more real. That's thank you, Ava, for doing that for me and everyone else. Um, let's um let's go back to what sorts of things are most important for you specifically, not like what do you think is important to other people to keep track of in this way and why?
Oh goodness. Um,
I had to ask a hard question eventually.
yeah. Um, Honestly, probably a lot of the surface stuff is the most complicated for me. Um, Mostly like height and weight and like age. Um, a lot of I've like just kind of thinking back, I've written a lot of scenes where like a character's height is described and they're like not super tall or like something like that. This character that I have up right now, again, is my protagonist of the current book I'm working on now. Um, and so I had to make sure that his height was shorter than all of his bandmates because that's like a plot point in the story is that he's shorter than all of his bandmates. Um, and and so like then I had to like I have to go back and like flip to the bandmates and make sure that they're all taller than him. Um, I had that happen in another story where I had drawn a character that was like taller than another, but then I went back and I looked in the text and she was shorter than everyone else, and I was like, oh, whoops! Like I don't know why I can't keep track of that. Um, so again, it's good to have a holy grail there. Um,
Yeah, that's great. I
Again,
was
like
gonna ask what you do if you need to make edits.
oh yeah, um, pretty easy for the Holy Grail. I write in pencil, so I just erase it and rewrite it. I did that like right before I showed this sheet. I had the character age wrong. Um, I ended up aging him up in the story, so I had to like erase and write his different age. Um, but I guess in like text wise, it's not too much of a problem to revise. I just kind of like I don't know, maybe like control F and figure out where I wrote about height. Or just kind of like scan through having my holy grail off to the side and like seeing if all things are accurate.
I'm thinking,
I
I'm
feel like
thinking,
that's
go ahead.
I feel like that's kind of like a maybe like final draft sort of revisionist thing. Um is to like, have your character sheet and go through making sure everything's consistent. Um it's definitely not like a I mean, it's helpful to have it during the first draft. But I guess like the guess and not guess and check, the going through it with a fine tooth comb thing is definitely a third act or final draft activity.
Yeah. I'm genuinely thinking about like doing this for my long form project because I've already told you like I've messed up somebody's age and I didn't give someone a name. Like the inconsistencies are there and it is going to be annoying when I get to the next draft. So I can maybe circumvent that. It's a little late, but I haven't finished the draft, so it's not like it's so
Yeah,
late.
I definitely have not finished the draft that I'm working on. So, yeah.
So tell me about the quotes section. What does that
Um
mean and how does that function within your writing?
that one is like pretty much what I do with the quotes that I write down on my phone. Uh Again, it's another situation where like if I don't have my phone for some reason and I'm in a room with only a piece of paper and someone says something really funny, I like write it down. Um and then I can end up like going back and looking at it and kind of like first of all making myself laugh, but then if somebody said something that again seemed like something my character would say, then I can like mark down on this like here's what my character said, or this would be interesting for them to say. Here I can show you a picture of what it looks like. These are all from a class that I was in, that the professor was saying.
Um,
So
cool. I want to go back to plot. You said that
yeah.
you don't really use that one on paper. But I would like to know, as selfishly, and as a community service, that's why we do this.
Yeah.
What does it look like when you're outlining plot? And I mean that like visually, but also like what are the steps?
I do like an actual like legit outline. I guess when you picture like a
Like
bibliography or
Roman
something like
numerals?
that. Yeah, bullet points. Um, I can just show you on my phone. I do the Roman numerals thing. Um, I think I so like it would be like Roman numeral, and then that's like the scene of what's happening in the book. Um, so like I don't know. I'm trying to think of what story I would be telling to like have the outline. Um, so yeah, like Roman numeral, here's like the main thesis of what's going on in the scene. Like Ava and Sarah are doing Write More Light right now. Um, and then so then I'd write A, like kind of like indent it and write A. Um, and then it would be like a little bit more detail about what's going on in the scene. And it's like Ava and Sarah are specifically talking about the Holy Grail. And then from there, I'd add some bullet points and be like, inside the Holy Grail is like a section about plot and a section about places. And so it's pretty finely detailed from there. Um, I'm not really sure how other plotters plot out their stories, but that's very much for some reason something that I've always just been into. Because it's also like a very bare bones plot structure. I think something that plotters might run into is feeling like they are telling the whole story in the outline. Um, and uh, that's something that I have to actively avoid doing. Like I want to make sure that the important beats are going to be hit, but then I also want to like leave room for myself to see if something exciting is going to happen that like I don't even know is going to end up happening.
I was gonna ask
um
that. I feel like it is possible um to like be so rigid in your outline that you um don't, like you said, don't leave room for the story to develop on its own.
I found one of my a character. um so yeah, this plot point one, this is what my outline looks like. It's very
Oh,
small,
okay.
very detailed. It's like 15 pages. But it's a long story. So number one, this is like the first part would be like this character's born. Um, it's like told from it's like a biography. Um, A is nothing else really happens in their early life. Um, but then one and two are like, here's actually the relevant things that are happening in their life. Like they're a child actor, so they're starting to like get cast in movie roles. Um, and then plot point B is like the character wants to kind of express themselves in a certain way, but their parents are making them express themselves differently. And that's going to be more of like an overarching theme throughout the story. It's not like an actual plot beat. Um and so yeah, it's structured like that. When I do have like a very like specific plot point that I feel like needs to be elaborated on because I'm probably going to forget it, then I'll write it down in like the smallest bullet points. Um, but I usually try to make sure they're not more than like a line or two.
Um, uh, I'm trying to figure out, I've got some like deeper questions and we're just like not on that topic right now. How often do you update the Holy Grail versus, well, how often do you update the Holy Grail?
I guess my latest update is that I had to get a bigger binder. Um, so that was the thing that I ended up doing last. I actually have it right here. I had it in this smaller binder. Not as thick, but well loved. Um, and I was putting in so much new stuff that it just kind of like got really fat, and I was like, this thing is gonna burst. And a problem that I've encountered in the Holy Grail, I don't know if you've seen me doing it, is that it's very hard to turn the pages. Like you have to turn everything individually or it's gonna get caught. Um, but so yeah, step one was getting a bigger binder, but I usually update it whenever something really like strikes my interest. Like I don't have like a set schedule. where I set up to like write something down. Um, Usually it's just kind of like I'm sitting here and I'm like, oh, I forgot to finish so and so's character sheet. I'm gonna like go in and see what I could add. If I'm in the mood to draw, then I'll like draw the character and like post it in the Holy Grail. Um, the my latest like big renovation was the gods part. So I'm going to, on this page, I'm going to be writing a template for how the gods work. I haven't figured out exactly what that's going to look like yet, but um, it's going to be like something along the lines of like, here's what this god has domain over. Here's the god's personality. Here's a line of scripture from this like primary source text that exists in this universe that describes what this god is. And then I also have a section for controversies. About this god and like what some splinter groups would believe versus others. Um, and there's like 12 of them, so I have 12 new pages in the Holy Grail. Um, and yeah, that's pretty much like I thought of this. I had this idea for the religions a while ago, but I really like I was at work one day and I was like, I've never actually like drawn these. Um, or like written anything about them. So it just came to me.
I love that. You seem blessed. Like it's very okay, it's not surprising to me that you're a plotter, but it's like it's very you don't seem that rigid, you know? So I'm pleased to hear that. Okay, so then how often do you do the writing part?
Like writing the story or
Yeah.
writing the
I'm
oh
thinking
gun. Uh
versus updating the Holy Grail.
well, definitely I update the Holy Grail more than I'm writing right now. Um
That's a surprise, actually.
I yeah, I feel like a lot of like at least my personal hang up is that like I want to make sure that I have everything consistent before I start. But then also if I don't start, I'm never gonna start. So like I'm kind of like currently working up the I don't know, courage or like the drive to get stuff started, even if the section of the Holy Grail isn't actually complete. Um, and then I'll end up filling in the Holy Grail as I go, making sure like maybe as I write something down that like this ends up in the Holy Grail so I don't forget about it. Um, it's more of like a pathological thing for me, but I think for anybody else who's interested in starting a Holy Grail, it's probably pretty good to like update them side by side, and not really like preference one to the other.
That makes sense. And you know what we say at the writing center? We should be doing one thing every day to help our writing. That doesn't mean we have to write a chapter.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so now I'm getting into my meatier questions. There's only a couple left actually, so if you've got stuff you want to add, don't hold back. Um, brainstorming as a section seems
Yes.
like it could be everything. Um, like I feel like I would use and abuse it, and then maybe it would be like a brain dump situation. Like, how do you use that section?
That section is I have it split up into actually a couple sections. Um, so I don't have like dividers when I split up a section. Or I guess I kind of do. I just split it up between like the universe. So like I grab like a little post-it and I'm like I put it on the edge of the page and I'm like, okay, from here on is where this universe is happening. But that's like the extent of my divisions. Um, I have only one, but I have a list of imagery that I like. Um, and I dropped
Okay,
something. What did I drop? I don't know.
that's a great idea. And that might even be a section that I would add to mine is it imagery that I would want to include or like atmospheres or like I want it to take place at Rostalks or something. That's
Yeah,
getting inspired.
I'm glad. Um, I also have a list of phrases I like. That's kind of like quotes, but not really. It's um, more like sentence fragments that I think sound interesting that maybe I could like work into a paragraph. Um, a couple of them that I have written down are like what are going to be like album names for the bands. Um, this is the main brainstorming thing that I actually did. Um, which is I was trying to I'll just show you. It looks like a mess. It's me like absolutely losing my mind trying to do math. I'm not a math person, I never have been, but I was trying to determine um if like if there's this amount of days in a year on this planet and this amount of days in a year on another planet, what's like your age if you're on that other planet? Um, and that's something
I
like
think about that a lot, but
yeah.
because I watch Star Trek.
So yeah, I'm like I wrote down something that was like
How
I was
long
like
is a
these
day?
characters. Yeah, that's a lot of what I was determining. Like how long is the day? How long is the average lifespan of the people who live on this planet? If the average lifespan of these people on this planet is like this, then what would that translate to on this other planet? Um, and then I have a bunch of stuff written down about my Wizard of Oz story here. That's my other big thing. Um, and that was when I like didn't even have an idea for the universe yet. I was just like, wow, this is a character that I like. I talked about this in the last video, but this is a character I like and it doesn't fit in the current universe that I'm working on. What's a new universe that I could generate to put him in? Um, and that's a lot of what that is. It's just kind of like jotting down ideas. But I think I do a lot, like most of my brainstorming, like within like the character sheets. Um, that's mostly like if I see like one of those like blank squares, then I'm gonna be thinking of like if I can't figure out like what weaknesses the character has, like that's where I'm going to be doing the brainstorming. I might like move to my brainstorming section and like maybe take textual evidence of like this is what this character doesn't seem to be that great at, and like just make a note of it, but I don't like I don't know, I don't do like a bunch of like word dumping there.
Um, so I'm also seeing this as like assuming you get the topic sort of untangled, it'll probably transfer into another section.
Yeah.
That's cool. I can see this as being like I'm trying to think of some big universe, some big franchise like if this existed for Star Wars,
Yeah.
right? Everyone would want it and argue over it and reference it all the time. So I think this
Yeah.
is also, if you're famous, you guys build the Holy Grail. Uh
Yeah. Because
um
then if people are like arguing over your work, you can be like, no, actually, it's written down right here.
um
I'm a big death of the author person, so I probably would be fine with it anyway.
yeah, I mean I love this. Um okay, so how do you use it? Like what does your writing session look like when you if there's a situation in which you've got the Holy Grail next to you, you got your whatever you write with in front of you, what does that look like?
I usually have the character sheet open. Um, and like if I get started on writing a character, I'll probably look back to the character sheet and just like see the basic stuff about them. Um, I do that with places too, like have the places thing open, um, see what's happening. Um, a lot of what I use it for right now, since I'm mostly like writing like shorter stuff and poems right now and not like as much about these universes, I normally just kind of have like I use it for drawing. Um, so a lot of I guess the sketch section that I have is like brainstorming for art. Um, so like I'll draw like certain characters and put them down in the sketch section. Um, I have a pretty good example. So there's this character that so Mariko and I are working on a universe together. It's about superheroes. Um and so I drew like I doodled out this character at work and I was like, this person looks like a weasel. Like maybe I could have like a weasel villain. Um so I ended up drawing her right there. That's her. Um and that's like the first drawing I ever did of her.
She real cute.
Um, but then as like you flip through the sketch section, you can see her evolving. Um, so I did like a better drawing of her up here. This is also her right here. Um, So you can kind of see her like growing as a character over the sketch section, as she's like fitting in with the other characters. Um, so yeah, if I end up like drawing something else, I'll probably have the Holy Grail open to the sketch section and like looking at what I did originally to draw that character in that context.
Muted. So what am I missing? What's the what should I have asked? What are the other powers? How has this gotten you places?
Um, I think it's a really good motivational tool. That's probably the big thing for me.
Makes
Even if
sense.
I
The more
haven't
that you're
been working
engaging
as
with
much
it.
on, yeah, even if I haven't been working as much on the actual like universes, I am working on the universe itself. So it's like the creative juices are flowing, they just need to like go into the right receptacle. Um, they are going into a receptacle right now, so that's like something's working. I actually have a secret other Holy Grail. Do you want to see that?
Yes.
Okay, so this is the Ark of the Covenant.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um,
I was gonna ask to research that in the future.
yeah. This is the drawing equivalent to the character sheets. Um, so this is, I'll find a good character to flip to. Um, if you're an artist, I highly recommend this too. This is like a base reference for every single character that I ever draw. Um, so here's Winford. Um, I drew like a picture of him, and this is going to pretty much be my reference of him for every single time I draw him. And so I just have like little bubbles of text around him pointing at like important features about like how to draw him, like his hair swoops in this particular way, and he's got this particular tattoo and it needs to be drawn with this particular like color. um and I that's another thing where if I think of something that is important to the like art of that character, um I'll end up uh filling that in at some point. I have like this dedication letter at the front that's saying like this is for you if you want to draw my character. It's mostly for me because I want to draw my own characters, but if someone else were to want to draw my character, they could look at this thing to make sure they don't leave out like an important asset of what the character looks like.
That's like a yearbook.
Yeah.
I'm so envious of your um I don't know, like organization or focus or something. I I I so get like once you said that it was good motivation, I was like, of course, like the more just having that is going to force you to think about your project more, even if you're not actively using it. If you presumably you see it. But then also like things out in the world are going to remind you like, here's my character page, here's my quotes page, here's my I wrote down your subjects and then I just am making up whatever I can think of. Um, bios and places, like everything is it could be potentially forcing you to engage ever more with your project, which of course is going to make you write more. Yeah, did I miss anything? What do you wish I had asked? I feel like we normally
um
spend way more time
I
on this.
guess like yeah, I guess like if you have multiple universes, something that helps me at least in this one is that I color code it by page. Um, so blue is like this particular universe, pink is another universe, orange is its own universe, and then yellow is another universe.
You could
Um,
also have separate binders.
so that's very helpful to specify.
All
Yeah,
right,
that's all I can
cool.
really think of though. I think there's a lot of like room to explore in the Holy Grail if like I don't know, maybe you have like a facet of your novel or whatever that is very important and like doesn't fit within like the boundary of something that is in the Holy Grail. I think it's totally fine to like make up that too. Something that I get caught up a lot myself on is just kind of like thinking that I need to follow a rigid structure. And I really don't. I can do whatever I want. And that's another like There's a hair in front of me. Um, that's another part of what's fun about the Holy Grail is that like I don't have to sit down and pump it out. I can just like it's just something fun to have that I can look at and like inspire myself.
I I'm now, well, I'll get to this. I'm excited now to talk about the prompt, which you don't know about.
Yes.
So um cool. I'll babble a little bit when we get to the prompt. First, we're going to talk about what's coming up at the Midwest Writing Center. Tonight, we have we're recording this in advance, so my brain just did a crazy dance. Tonight, as of the premiere of this video, is our youth writing workshop that takes place from 5:30 p.m. to 8 p.m. at the Midwest Writing Center. That's on the ground floor of the Rock Island Public Library downtown branch. Um,
I will be there.
yeah, we'll be
Count
there.
on it.
It'll be awesome. We're very nice
Yeah.
people who have lots of thoughts and feelings. Um, da, 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 da. We have more things coming up. The geez, Writer Studio's over for the month because it's a really long month for Saturdays. Our next Spectra reading is on December 7th. That's a Saturday, so extra exciting. Party night, going out night. It's headlining Jacob Sands, and we're also going to have 3 readers from Narratives QC. And we're going to have another free writing workshop at 6 o'clock. There will be a open mic at 7, and then our featured readers go on at 8. That's at Roz Talks, which is also in downtown Rock Island. Again, the event is totally free, open to the public. Anyone can join us for that free writing class. I'm going to go back to Writers Studios the first and third Saturday of every month from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. We have an online version and an in-person version. The online version meets online on Zoom. The link to that is available lots of places. You're welcome to drop a comment if you would like me to just send it to you. The in-person group meets at the Midwest Writing Center. We also are going to be starting up on year-end giving here this week. Giving Tuesday is the Tuesday after Thanksgiving. So we go Thanksgiving, you do Black Friday, then you got Shop Small Saturday. Yeah, Shop Small Saturday. Cyber Monday, Giving Tuesday. So once you run out of shopping money, you can donate to us. That is something to think about when you're looking at your donations for the end of the year. Please think of us as we endeavor to help our community write more light into their lives. So, okay, that's the coming up things. What we've got for you for a writing prompt is something I'm really excited to do, having hung out with Ava a bit. Just a bit. Having hung out with Ava a bit and been able
A
to dive into
bit.
this topic. I want you, this is not, again, this is 5 minutes. Set a timer for yourself, write whatever comes, but I'm going to ask you to do it with this focus of what your Holy Grail will look like. I'm going to look at what categories I might have that might be helpful to me, but if you end up writing about Indiana Jones, like that's cool too. Thanks for hanging out with us again, Ava. And as always, friends, please write more light into your life.